the key thing to remember when it comes to trauma is that, number one, what we have been through, whether it's childhood, whether it's adolescence, whether it's adulthood, one, we may underestimate the lasting effects of what we go through. A lot of times, especially in our community, we grow up in certain conditions or in certain childhood environments that feel normal because everybody else that we live around, everybody else in our neighborhood is going through similar things. So we may start to feel like that type of life is normal, or that type of childhood is normal, or the type of parenting that we dealt with was normal. Um, and number one, I do want to say that, the word normal, I don't, what is normal really, but just in the sense of, a lot of times we may think that because a lot of people that we know, we grow up around, go live in the same types of environments, that what we went through individually is not trauma, or may not be classified as trauma, right? We may look at it as just part of growing up, but in a lot of cases, everything that we may have gone through, or the way that we have grown up, has an effect. It has an effect on how we think, how we maneuver, how we choose friends. But in relevance to today's topic, it affects how we choose partners. And today I wanted to outline about 5 things that trauma influences, to show how you may have gotten to where you are, why you chose some of the exes that may be in your history, and what patterns and behaviors and thoughts and fears may be living inside you that may be keeping you in a cycle. Because if I want to say, if I'm here for anything, it's to save us time, save us energy, and save us unnecessary re-traumatization and unnecessary heartache and problems. Because choosing the wrong person will make your life worse in unknown ways. As we see, maybe you see it in your personal life, maybe you see friends going through it, or even just news articles and headlines. You'll see, you know, murder suicides, and people murdering their own kids, or people just losing it on live streams, and just doing different things that you might say, well, where did that come from? How did this person get to that point? And relationships, the reason why a lot of these relationships get volatile is because relationships cause us to be our most vulnerable. Many of us walk around and try to, we're guarded, or we may have gotten heartbroken before, childhood trauma before, that's made us really, really guarded. But relationships, when we're talking love, when we're talking connections and romantic connections, we need to understand that, as if you're a couple and you have a partner, the other person has the ability to destroy you emotionally, right? If we're thinking about infidelity, how much that hurts. If we're thinking about, certain betrayals, right? That person can up and leave you. That person can disappear off the face of the earth. That person can have children with you and then move out of the country. There's a lot of power that the other person has. And so, which then also means that there's a lot of emotions that come from from relationships, and that can re-traumatize us and make us even worse. So what I want to do first, before I even get into it, I want to invite you guys to become speakers, just so that if you have anything that you want to talk about, any situations that you may have been through that you want to speak on, or if you have any questions that you want to throw at me, I want you to have the opportunity to do so. I'm a trauma recovery coach. I have a background in mental health. So I've worked as a therapist. I've worked as a counselor for families, couples, children, individuals, mentorship. I've worked as a personal trainer, family specialist, a lot of different areas. So I focus on really a holistic view when it comes to trauma, as far as overcoming it totally, not just focusing on the mental aspect, but focusing on human relationships, how trauma affects your life purpose, how trauma affects your physical health, and all of those types of things. So feel free to request to come up if you want to chime in. First point I want to make out of the five is trauma affects self-esteem, and we need to understand how self-esteem ruins your dating life. When you have, let's say, if you grow up with either parents or in an environment where you were not told your accomplishments were not acknowledged, you were not poured into, you were not given self-confidence, any accomplishments that you made, whether they were good grades, whether your behavior was good, if you did not receive enough confirmation that you were valuable, that can cause self-esteem issues, as well as being in a position where one of your parents may have abandoned you, or may have been out of your life for one reason or another, maybe got locked up or maybe passed away. So the loss of a parent can affect self-esteem, right? Now, if you struggle with self-esteem as a child, it's going to usually last into adulthood in one shape, one way or another. Let's look at self-esteem, because it's not always, it doesn't always mean one thing. You can have low self-esteem based on how you look, but have high self-esteem in sports or your career, right? You can have really low self-esteem when it comes to attracting romantic partners, or your value as a partner, but then have really high self-esteem based on how you manage money, right? So there's a lot of different categories that things can fall in. But if you do have self-esteem issues, chances are you will have difficulties in your dating life. You will choose either A, you will choose based on who temporarily raises that self-esteem, and not look at the other qualities that they have, putting yourself in a dangerous position, right? Because all they would have to do is say the right things in order for you to choose them, and then you may be putting yourself in the wrong situation. Or you may be attracted to partners who continue the cycle of low self-esteem. So you may have partners who may be verbally abusive, or who, uh, you know, use punishment tactics or treat you in a negative way, because your self-esteem is so low. You feel as though you deserve certain abusive treatment, and you don't deserve somebody to treat you right. So either one of those scenarios can happen, and you can wind up with the wrong partner. Number two, trauma affects security. When you lose a parent very, very young, or even, in adolescence, if you were abused or anything like that, right? Or even neglected, you may be somebody who has trouble feeling secure, right? You don't feel safe. You don't feel secure with certain people, or much with anybody romantically. So if you struggle with security, and it comes from losing that parent, or it comes from, having experienced abuse, or neglect, or anything like that, your security is damaged, and as you grow, it remains so And in a lot of cases, that hole grows even more, because I mean the world around us is a very insecure world as well. So you may be in a position now where you date, either A, you date, but you never feel secure with that person, which means that can lead you to self-sabotaging or ruining the relationship, because you look to that partner to repair your security. But the partner's job, or your when we're talking about romantic partners, your partner's job is to um learn you, understand you, and not intentionally re-trigger insecurity. But it's not their job to totally repair broken security, if that makes sense. Because again, myself being in the mental health field, that's a job. That's a job in itself. And a lot of times, certain people may look to finding a partner in order to repair themselves, and that's not a safe intentionality. It's not because it sets you up for disappointment if your motivation for finding a partner, and getting into a relationship and dating and all of that, is to find someone who can repair previous damage. Then you're in for some disappointment, because that's your job to do. And your job, meaning if you need outside help and assistance and support with that, then that's definitely something that you want to look into. Which reminds me, before you guys go, at some point during this time, once you guys are looking at Jumbotron, I have two links there. This is to my app, right? It's called Above Trauma. It's something that I created myself, and it's designed to be a supplement to your life, regarding the strategies you may need when it comes to healing trauma and releasing trauma. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to the mental health, life purpose, how it affects your physical health as well. And I'm going to start doing group coaching sessions. So, I want to go on a deeper level to be able to help you directly with some of the actual problems you may be going through. So if you guys are on here, and for the people listening on the replay, if you feel as though you don't necessarily want to bring your real life situation on the stage here, it's definitely a safe place within the app where I'm going to start to be doing the group sessions. So they're gonna be at 8:30. So all you have to do is download the app, set up your login, and then click on the section that says group sessions. But outside of that, it's also a supplement for you to be able to, on a 24/7 basis, be able to get strategies, get assistance, get maneuver through content that will help you to gain consistency against the fear that keeps your trauma activated. Because this is not, when it comes to trauma that affects relationships and trauma in general, it's not something that heals itself. It's not something that heals over time. You have to be consistent with your healing process, because in a lot of cases, if it came from childhood trauma, that's subconscious programming. So you've been programmed a certain way. So in order to reverse subconscious programming, you need repetition. You need to be on it as far as healing, and that's what the app is for. So you can tap in on a daily basis. Track your mood states. There's guided meditations. There's a dating section. There's abandonment trauma section. Course virtual courses. Everything you really need. Self care as well. Everything you really need to maneuver through these things. And so definitely check that out, and tap in with me. So number three, trauma increases self-sabotage. So what do I mean by that? When you grow up in a certain environment, right, and you maybe, let's say, experience a parent, opposite sex parent who is emotionally unavailable to you. Whether that means that's just their personality, whether that means that's just how they raise you, or whether that means that they are reluctant to emotionally connect, whether that means they may be abusing alcohol, drugs, anything like that. If your opposite sex parent is not accessible emotionally, self-sabotage in this case means that eventually, if you do nothing different, if you just grow up, eventually you will end up choosing people who reinforce that same feeling that you got growing up, and you will choose people who are emotionally unavailable as well, and it will feel right. And that's really the major point that I want to drive home in being here, is that it will feel correct. It will feel like, oh, there's chemistry here, this feels right. It feels right because it feels familiar. It's not actually right for you, it resonates with you. And that's really you know in order to demystify relationships, you have to know that everything that feels right isn't right, and the only way to correct it is to heal from those parts that resonate with that other person. Because most of us, if I ask for a show of hands right now, probably 100% of the people in here would be able to recall an ex that was toxic, or recall an ex that was not right, or betrayed them, or cheated on them, or there was something that wasn't right with them. And the reality is that, yes, we can all name somebody like this, but we also have to realize that we not only attracted them, but we unknowingly chose them based on similar levels of brokenness. Whatever trauma we dealt with, or that affected us, resonates with that other person. And it's tough to admit at times, because a lot of times when we're done bad by certain people, we look to them as the whole problem, or we look to them as you know the complete reason, and we're so much different than them. But the only thing is, you both may have experienced similar traumas. But the difference is, both of you deal with them differently, and I'm going to explain that next. Trauma affects balance. So trauma, what I've noticed, right, in just my personal life, going through my mom's murder, going through just abandonment issues from my dad growing up, just different traumas along the way. What I've noticed is that, and observing other people as well, and having clients and helping them work through different traumas, what I've noticed and keyed in on is that trauma usually creates one of two types of personality. It's either a giver or a taker, and not just that, but an overgiver and an overtaker, right? I want you to remember that. So an overgiver and an overtaker. So I'm going to explain both, right? So the overgiver is someone who, in relation, and you may identify with this, you could throw an emoji up or something if you identify with this one, right? So in relationships, and you might show up like this as a person in period, in general, but you're the person who, in relationships, you are doing everything for your partner. This may be rescuing someone, right? Like rescuer mentality. So the people that you attract may be going through something, or dealing with a whole lot of issues, broke, fresh off a divorce, or fresh, maybe in emotional pain, or the person is suffering in one way or another. And this almost is an attractive feature, whether you to you whether you may admit it or not. This may be an attractive feature, and it pulls you in, and you try to support this person repair this person. Um, and the whole time, the relationship is non-reciprocal, meaning it's imbalanced. And just like I said earlier, trauma affects balance. So now you are somebody who has somehow gained a psychological comfort with you being the person that gives everything and the other person gives almost nothing. And a lot of times your standards are lower. A lot of times you let them get away with certain things that they shouldn't. A lot of times they don't measure up to the standards of, what you would typically look for. But you find yourself hooked into this situation. You taking excuses, they lying, and you believe in it, or not believing it, but maybe not even believing it, but acting like you believe it just to keep things going, right? You find yourself compromising yourself constantly. You're in people pleasing mode, and you feel guilty when you can't be there for this person in some sort of way. But the problem is you're over the line. Yes, in relationships, you're supposed to give to your partner, but number one, you're not getting the same energy back. Number two, you are sacrificing to your own detriment. So when you're exhausted, you're still doing stuff. When it's inappropriate, you're still going over the line to help this person, right? And not requesting anything back or not demanding anything back, and existing in this for years of time. That's an overgiver. Now, overgivers attract overtakers, right? So people, this would be your narcissist personality. This would be, manipulators, people that, like the gaslight, people who use control tactics to get their love, right? So I want you to understand, overgivers and overtakers are looking for love in a desperate way. The giver thinks they can give their way into love, and they're only valuable if they are giving beyond their limits, and they are scared of being abandoned, so they give to their own detriment, to a fault. The taker is so afraid of being unloved that they control people in order to emotionally keep them locked into loving them, praising them, and giving them energy. So the perfect partner for the overgiver is the overtaker, or I'm sorry, the perfect partner for the overtaker is the overgiver, because the overgiver doesn't have any boundaries and any limits, and the overtaker takes without boundaries and limits, and is always in control mode, right? So this type is where you'll meet them, and you won't know that at the first couple of times that you meet them, or dates or whatever, they are either one, showering you with everything that you would want, saying what you want to hear, um, or two, they are assessing your flaws and weaknesses. They're looking for, okay, is this person prone to guilt? Is this person, do they give without expectations? Do they, what? So they are assessing you for your weak areas, right? Because again, it's trauma based. So at some point, they began to fear vulnerability. You think of childhood, as kids, we're vulnerable. So if you get your heart broken, or your parents, either abuse you, or abandon you, or whatever the case is, you don't want to feel vulnerable again. So a lot of times, the takers, they never want to show their real emotional side. They don't they so they heal or cope by building a guard, an image over themselves. So they put bricks down, symbolically. They put bricks down every day to build a wall between them and the outside world, and that's their way of protecting their heart, right? So when you have been in situations where you've been manipulated by somebody, or they may have been an actual narcissistic personality, or anything like that, you're dealing with somebody who is so afraid to be vulnerable, that they literally have to have 10 layers of tricks, lies, facades, deceptions in order to deal with you. And they utilize control mechanisms. So they'll try to, make you feel guilty in order to comply with whatever the demands are. So their tactic for gaining love, approval, support, energy is to to basically find people who are controllable and control that, um, without giving their heart as well. Which is why, a lot of times they can be obsessive, but it's not based on actual vulnerable love. They're not empathic. They're more so, you know, trying to get an energy source. They've reduced themselves to only being open to receiving an energy source from another person. So that's the balance side of things. Another thing too, trauma creates desperation. So one thing we wanna understand and realize is that there a lot of us can be moving through life with a huge void and trying to fill the void with somebody. And one thing I say is that, you can't heal old wounds with new knives. So what I mean by that is, if you try to heal your trauma by having a partner, you're going to end up reopening the same wound you're trying to use them to close, because you're choosing the way that you choose is still based on fear. Fear is at the root. And even neurologically, if you look at the brain, trauma messes up the calibration of the fear centers. So if we're talking about the amygdala, we're talking about the hippocampus, we're talking about certain areas that would show up on a scan and light up with PTSD clients as well. And a lot of times I make a correlation between the traditional PTSD diagnosis and, the traditional soldier prototype, where, most of the time soldiers encounter that based on war and actual, real wartime trauma. And I usually compare those or parallel those with, relationship trauma, and having sort of a relationship PTSD, so to speak, where, especially if there was abuse, especially if there was, um, infidelity or multiple infidelities, or, a lot of traumas can come from relationships. And I don't think it's spoken on enough, or I don't really don't think it's termed as trauma. A lot of times I think people usually a lot of times people usually view trauma as being, well, I was in, Afghanistan, and the people from my camp were blown up or during a mission. Like, that's trauma, like that. Or getting physically assaulted. But it doesn't necessarily have to do that. It have to do with that all the time. You can be have experience trauma from infidelity, and that lasts. We know it lasts from relationship to relationship. We know it creates, uh you know imbalance, jealousy, possessiveness, insecurities. I've seen it in millions of relationships when it comes to just, my personal friends, and how, um I've seen certain women choose, or come out of a infidelity in a marriage, get remarried to somebody who doesn't cheat, and then accuse them of cheating to anywhere they are or anything that they do. So it's even when you don't choose somebody who will repeat it, chances are you will unknowingly start to sabotage the relationships that you have, and that might be worse. You know, you don't want to find yourself on either one of those sides. You don't want to be choosing people that reopen the trauma, but then, or that repeat it, but then you don't want to choose people who are trying to be good to you, uh and who don't suffer from, you know, these different traumas, and but then not be able to handle it, and eventually sabotage it and ruin it because of the fact that those energies are still in you. That hurt and that pain hasn't left. And I want to warn against the thought process that, well, if you go through, you know, a toxic relationship, all you have to do to heal is take a break from dating for a while, and then it's going to, you'll get better, or you'll be better, or you'll almost release it that way. That doesn't work either. I have a personal friend who took about a decade off from dating, and as soon as she jumped back into the game, found somebody she liked, they started to date. This person ended up hurting her ASAP. Had all kind of red flags, and it was like, it almost made it as if that 10 years of time was for nothing, right? Because it's not something you can stay away from, because it's not external. It's not outside. A lot of times we say, okay, the dating pool got pee in it. It's everybody else. It's men, it's the women, it's not. Yes, there's a lot of people who have delusions, and, you know, who aren't the cream of the crop when it comes to dating, or who wouldn't be right for you. Yeah, yeah. But that doesn't mean that your person isn't out there. That doesn't mean that you have to just stay away from everybody. No, seclusion isn't going to help repair. Repair is active. When you hear the word healing, when I say the word healing, I'm talking about being active, like actively repairing those wounds. And when I say it, I'm not just saying it as a cliche. I have a whole app designed to help you on a daily basis reverse the damage. And the reason I created it is so that it would be easy for us to reverse the damage, and to open ourselves up, and to resonate on the level that we see ourselves, because a lot of us have a vision for ourselves and how we function, or how we would function, but we're not there yet. We don't want to walk around and be suspicious, be insecure, have low self-esteem, choose see red flags and choose people anyway, and flow right into another bad relationship, or to be scared of the dating process altogether, or to have this high anxiety when you're actually dating, or to come into new dating experiences having the scarring, and really viewing the opposite sex as trash from the gate, not even giving anybody a chance, right? I've seen people put up podcast clips or video clips on dates saying that all men are trash. So if you feel that way, what are you on a date for? That's the thing I'm really looking at, is like, I don't want us to I don't want us to think dating is pointless. I also don't want any of us to be carrying and harboring animosity and hostility in a dating process, but expecting to find somebody. It's not going to happen. And so when what's up, MF? I got you. And so last point here is that we can't be in we don't want to put ourselves in an impossible space where it's like, okay, when I'm dating, I feel negative, I'm apprehensive, I'm doubtful, but then when I'm not dating, I feel alone, I'm in solitude, so you don't feel comfortable anywhere. There's a way out of that, right? And so definitely make sure, before I get you on, make sure everybody, make sure you download the app. I put the link in the jumbotron here. Make sure that you download it, you create a login, and you set up your plan. It's $9.99 a month. I'm gonna be doing weekly, like I said, I'm gonna be doing weekly group coaching as well, so we can get deep into these issues, and I can give you the time you deserve to be able to work through, as well as the wealth of content that you can tap in with on a daily basis. So let me get you on here. All right, MF Kush, go ahead.
What's up, brother? Shout out to you for hosting the space. Those videos that you were talking about where women call themselves like uh calling a man out for, whatever the case may be, and I've seen it being posted on social media so much. I think that posting those videos and the women that watch that, I think that those are women in reality. I think they need to just talk about the men that they have had a bad experience with, and to
Right.
put a blanket statement on another man that you call yourself trying to date, or you call yourself trying to get to know, and say that he's already romantically ain't shit is crazy. Then if that's going to be the case, then you just need to be by yourself, because you obviously have some unhealed trauma that you have not dealt with. You have not taken accountability in the fact that you have a negative outlook on men, and that needs to be readjusted before you call yourself dating. You have to take care of your emotional shit before you decide to ever enter into any kind of relationship, because I also feel like it's not that other person's obligation to take care of your emotional baggage because you chose not to deal with it. And that's not that other person's fault that you have those emotional scars, but they also can't be held accountable like as if they gave you those emotional scars. um I think in general, women, for the most part, the single women that are out there, they have negative perceptions on relationships because they deal with other women that also have negative perceptions on relationships, because these are single women taking advice from other single women and thinking that it's going to help them get to a point of marriage if that is their goal, when they don't even have basic communication skills. So that's all I'd say.
Right. No, 100%. Let me touch on that. So yeah, yeah, you definitely hit it right on the head. And um the accountability piece of it is major, because healing is on the other side of that. So if your current state is based on everybody else doing you wrong, the question becomes, how do you manage to locate all of the people that do that? How are you able to, with such pinpoint accuracy, find yourself in relationships where people are unfaithful, or people are abusive, or people or abandon you, or play around, or do whatever? Like, how do you constantly keep finding the same person? And if you're unwilling to acknowledge that, or you're unwilling to say that there's something in you that keeps you on this path, then you basically are declaring that you will never heal from that. And I feel for those people, because that's a dark and lonely life. Because I know I have friends whose parents are single and have the same mentality, and they are alone, sad, and depressed, because the accountability, the pride of the whole thing, they're unwilling to let that go. And so it deters anybody from, or anybody of quality, from finding them. And we have to be really, really honest about energy, and cleaning up our energy. Because when it comes to accountability, it's almost, I look at it like this, right? Because we all at times don't feel comfortable with being accountable with certain things. Like, so I get the discomfort, but I look at it like this: when you um when I was a kid, right? And it's probably, a lot of people as far as public speaking, but when I was a kid, I remember it was just like maybe probably like fourth or fifth grade. When we would have to stand up and present something, I was like, I would always get nervous at that part. Always nervous to speak in front of everybody at one time. So I didn't like the feeling nervous. Like, I didn't like how that felt. So I made a decision at that point in time that any and every opportunity that I had, no matter what class it was, to stand up and present something, I was going to do that because I didn't like how it felt. So I made sure that I developed consistency in speaking out in front of the class until that feeling disappeared, until it was something to look forward to, and there was no anxiety around it. And so it's the same thing with accountability, right? At first, it's like, I don't want to, it's them, y'all always, and all y'all be this, that, and the third. But then at a certain point, if you just say, hey, you know what, I could have did that differently, or my last relationship, I could have went about it this way, or I tried to emasculate that man, I shouldn't have done that, right? I wonder where that comes from, and then it puts you on a path, number one, to want to keep doing that because it's freeing. When you got to come up with 30 different reasons why your life is how it is, and none of them have nothing to do with you, that's a very that's a poor existence. And you know having that level of introspection to say, yeah, now why did I do that, or why did I choose this person, that puts you on the path to say, oh, right around the time I met this person who I ended up in this long relationship with, and it was terrible, and they had all these bad qualities, I lost my grandma, or I lost my uncle, or this happened. So that still affects me. Then I can, you can start making the steps. Once you realize these things, you can start taking the steps to get better. And that's really all it is. And with the app, again, it's designed to give you the ability to be consistent behind closed doors, um so that it's not always about having a session or doing this, that, and the third, with a professional. A lot of times it's completing certain things at home. I have certain strategies that I place up there that can be done over time, and so over time you'll watch your mood shift and be more positive. Over time, you'll start to um, release some of the anxiety that comes around with dating, and you're able to realize that certain things don't trigger you anymore. And I'm talking about real experiences from real clients that I have and that I've had in the past, based on these strategies that I've cultivated over time. Because this comes from, one, me being in the field and being a healer, but also my own traumas and healing my damn self. This comes from the trenches, you know what I'm saying? Being homeless at different points, being in a whole bunch of different difficult scenarios, and losing a lot of family. And I mentioned my mom earlier and everything like that. Like, these things I've had to work through myself and find out strategies that would not only keep me in the keep me going, but my secondary goal was that if I can not only just stay at baseline, I want to get high. I want to go higher than that. And I want to be able to teach people how to it's not just about, reversing the damage from trauma, but it's about getting to your vision of who the hell you want to be in whatever category you're seeking to improve in. That might be mental health. Maybe you have a lot of thoughts that you don't want to have. Maybe you have anxiety. Maybe, you have depression, right? Maybe you are a people pleaser. Maybe you have a rescuer mentality and you keep rescuing these partners. And you want to get out of that, right? You want to change. Maybe you're a perfectionist. Maybe you're too hard on yourself. Maybe you're an over sacrificer. Maybe you're doing way too much for everybody else. Maybe all you find is non-reciprocal relationships, people that want to drain you for your energy and not give you anything back. Maybe that's your life. I don't want that to be your existence. It doesn't have to be your existence, and in many cases it's not your fault that you even like that. If we're talking about childhood trauma, you ain't caused that. But if you're living the effects now, I'm living proof, and everybody that I've helped is living proof that you don't have to live that. That doesn't have to be the end. You don't have to, wave the white flag and say, well, this is just who I am. A lot of times you'll hear that where it's like, it's just who I am. It's not. It's your personality being formed around a trauma, or being formed around your programming from a child. And so that's changeable. That's not static. That's not set in stone. That's not cemented. If you're a people pleaser, you can change that. You go against the current and create a new current, right? And so that's what I want for you all. Maybe it's, maybe trauma has affected you in the relationships arena. Maybe family is the major issue. Maybe it's your friendships are the issue. Maybe you need a whole new circle. Maybe you've chosen friendships that you felt made sense based on the stage of life you were in, but now you start to see a lot of the demons that maybe they may be moving with, and a lot of, maybe envy. Maybe they secretly want your downfall. Maybe, they're there when you're up and not when you're down, or maybe they're there for you when you're down and not when you're up. I often talk about situations where you may have friends who are your go-to for when you're dealing with a lot of stressors, or when you're down, because of the fact that they feel good or superior when you're at that level. So when you are down, they're always there because they like to see you there. They don't like to see you up. So I saw a comment said, "What's the solution?" I'm gonna give you a mic. I want to see what's the solution to what part. Let's see what part you're talking about. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, I sent you an invite. So if you want to hop on, let me know what the solution to which aspect. But yeah, shout out to say Auntie Racist down here. She got the Dr. Francis Cress Welsing as the background. I like that. I like that. Her birthday is this month too. So, but yeah, maybe your trauma comes in the form of lack of self-care, right? Which is a major one too. A lot of times we throw ourselves into work being the go-to for everybody that we know, and we keep ourselves in this loop of output and never return energy to ourselves. Or maybe our self-care has consequences. There's one thing I stand for 100%, is that we all need to have a self-care routine that doesn't have consequences. And what I mean by that is, okay, if you have um, stressors, or you're anxious, depressed, or um, anything like that, and your self-care has to do with, or you drink to fix it, or you smoke to fix it, those have physical consequences. So it's not to say to eliminate those altogether, but it's to say you want to at least have some self-care options and activities that don't have physical, mental, emotional consequences. And that's a major part of it. So let me see. All right. How not to be a people pleaser, right? So there's a lot of there's different strategies that I have for that. Um, One is, what I will tell you is that at the base of people pleasing is fear, right? So there's a lot of times it's a fear of that person abandoning you. It's a fear of you not fulfilling the image you created for yourself. If you've conditioned people to look to you as someone who is, gives without boundaries, sometimes the fear can be, well, if I shut that off and they already know me to be this pleaser personality, and then I shut that off, then they're going to have animosity. Or maybe, they're going to look at me different, or they're going to abandon me or retaliate or anything. It depends on who you're pleasing as far as what the specific fear is. But there can be a fear around that, right? And so one thing you want to do is you have to create a reward system. And I see you, MF. I'm gonna get you in here. You want to create a reward. I'll say this real quick. You want to create a reward system around enforcing boundaries that you create. So, for example, I'll give you this example. So, if you have somebody that you're pleasing, people pleasing, maybe with a family member, you have to first identify the pain point. So I feel stressed when they ask me to give them money and I don't want to give them money, or they ask me to give them a ride somewhere and I don't feel like doing that, or they have me taking care of somebody and I don't want to take care of it. Right? You got to figure out what you need, what you want to stop doing in relation to them, and then what you want to do after you've identified the areas that you want to create boundaries around. You have to start enforcing it, and then rewarding yourself for doing so. So, for example, such and such call you, yeah, can you do whatever? And they just asked you last week and you did it already. And then now they, hey, I need you to, you know, you wanna delegate it. You might have somebody else in mind. You say, hey, this time I'm not gonna be able to do it. You got to reach out to such and such, or just say no, or whatever feels comfortable. But as long as you're not gonna do it, and then after doing that, reward yourself in some kind of way. Maybe it's, buying yourself something you wanted. Maybe it's, getting a massage or something, or, some kind of self-care, something that rewards you for going against the fear voice. The fear voice is going to push you in the same direction 100 times. So disobeying the fear voice puts you in position to be successful over time, but you have to make sure that you are rewarding yourself for doing so, because what's going to happen is those fearful alarm systems are going to start creeping in. You're going to have what's called emotional reasoning, where you're going to start to feel all these thoughts like, that why did I just do that? I could have just helped them. I wasn't doing anything important. I was just chilling. I could have. You got to have something to combat that rush of feelings and emotions. Rewarding yourself helps you to do that. It helps your brain to then say, when she disobeys fear, we get something. So over time, it's gonna wear down, and you just keep running that same play. Hopefully that helps. Let me get go ahead. Go ahead, MF. You got it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, like, at the end of the day, look, when it comes to like setting boundaries, people have to understand that. Well, look, I'm gonna say this: if I choose to set a boundary for myself and you choose not to respect it, you can't get mad as a consequence that follows suits with that. If that means I choose to cut ties with you, that's just kind of like what it is. I think people also have to have the confidence in the boundaries that they set with themselves. So, like, Another example would be like, there's just some family members I just don't deal with because we just don't get along, and there is no point in knowing that the relationship doesn't serve me a purpose. There is no reason for me to continue it after my boundaries have continuously been violated, no matter who that is at that point. And it sucks, yeah, because that may be like one of your, your favorite siblings or a family member, whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of us as Black people have to understand that our mental health should be priority. Our mental health, our mental state should always be in priority, because you can never be the best you if you're in mental shambles. Just because you look nice on the outside does not mean that mentally you're okay. And it's okay to say that you're not okay. It's okay. We have to get out of the habit of that, even along with our Black boys. Our Black boys, and even maybe you can relate to this, right? Have a tendency to get told that when something arises, they have to be quiet, or they're not allowed to express themselves, or they have to man up, and that is an issue. I think Black men should be allowed to feel how they feel and voice how they feel without being told that they're bitching about it, and to have a safe space to do that. And if people don't respect that safe space or respect the fact that they are being vocal, then those are people that you like don't need to deal with. But that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
No, definitely, definitely excellent points. And definitely as when it comes to our boys, they definitely need to have a voice, and also outlets too. I put in work in the school system, and so I work with a lot of boys, helping them to not only just build in the realm of social and emotional learning, but also finding healthy outlets, because we have a different kind of energy. So the traditional school setting is not really set up for boys, one, but our boys, especially. So we need a lot more outlets to be able to channel the energy, and we may require a lot of leniency when it comes to learning, because I've seen certain situations where a lot of our boys would get just kind of hammered when it comes to stop doing this, don't do that, sit over here, and kind of boxed in, and symbolically almost imprisoned without actually being in a prison. And I don't want that for them either. But regarding the boundary situation, yeah, you're right on with that as well. But the difference is, if you have conditioned people over time, to view you in a certain way, or that you've shown them that you will go above and beyond, that doesn't mean, that shouldn't scare anybody from resetting or creating new boundaries and enforcing those. You have the right at any time. It's for everybody in the room. You have the right at any time period in your time on the planet to reestablish new boundaries and standards for yourself. When it comes to dating, you know, create standards and uphold them and enforce them. If it comes to family, friends, whatever, as far as what you're willing to do, you always have complete autonomy and governance over what you do for somebody else, especially if you're not beholden to them by any contract, or it's not an employment situation. If you're not feeling it, you got the right to not go do something. If you had a rough day, rough week, or whatever, and somebody's asking you to do bonus tasks and accomplish bonus activities, and you don't have it, you don't have it. You know what I'm saying? So, make sure that number one, the self-care is consistent, uh, because that will help you as well. It's also about, you know, training people how to treat you by your actions, and not only just your words, but by your actions. Because if you may use your words, if people know that they can talk, they can negotiate with you and still get you to do it, they're going to try to backdoor you. They're going to try to be overly persistent. You got to make sure that you're willing to enforce those boundaries, because this is you protecting your energy field. And healing or repairing if necessary. We work a lot. We gotta. I was telling somebody. I'll say this and I'll wrap it up. But I was telling somebody the other day. I was like, because I'm a big advocate for self care, and you'll find a lot of strategies in the app for self care when it comes to getting better sleep, improving moods, all this different type of stuff to do, right? And I was telling somebody like, look, the week is already rigged. No, and I think in a perfect world, we would be able to have self-care and heal at the same amount of time that we work and do output. So if they split the week down the middle, half the week we work, half the week we get to replenish and repair from the output that we did the first half. The problem is many of us work not only just 5 days, some of us work six, some of us work seven, some of us work 12s, like 12-hour shifts and everything like that. So in many cases, and then not to mention if you have kids and other things to do, errands and everything like that, you're running at like 98% output, but you don't even have the time in a lot of cases to do anything to reverse and to replenish and to be able to heal from the damage of the week. We getting hit hard out here, and it's not. Yes, we are resilient, but that's not all we are. We have the right to feel good. We have the right to feel, relaxed. We have the right to have peace, to activate and maintain peace. We have the right to live in that. And this is definitely something that is my goal for you. And so please feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a DM at any time. If you have any questions or anything like that, I want all of you guys to make sure that you download the app and set that up, because you know I'm going to be doing weekly group coaching with you guys. Um, so I'll be on camera taking questions and really, you know, so to speak, getting under the hood, right? So being able to do, like you take your car to a mechanic, they do the diagnostic, and they tell you exactly what you need to do. I consider myself that, just a mechanic for, the mind, the body, the spirit, the energy, all of that type of stuff, and on a weekly basis, as well as having full access to all of the content there. And I upload new content pretty much at minimum every week. A lot of times every other day, but minimum every week. So you're gonna have a full, just like Netflix, Disney Plus, everything like that. They're always adding movies, adding movies. I'm always adding different content that I create up there, so that no matter which way you learn, if you learn from webinars, if you learn from video courses, if you learn from reading articles, I've created all. I have my ebooks up there as well for free. Everything is there for you to learn from and to gain from. Because this is a constant, this is a consistent journey. Healing is a consistent journey, but you will feel relief as soon as you begin, as soon as you start to get momentum. So thank you guys for checking in. I will see you next week. Y'all be safe, and focus on you. If you've taken anything from this, you know dating really can take a back seat. It's really, it all boils down to you and your healing journey, and who's adding to it and who's subtracting from it. And if people are subtracting and drawing and draining your energy and re-traumatizing you, they don't have a place. They shouldn't have a place in your circle, until they make changes. So thank you guys again, and have a great night.